And we told the Americans, take your eye in the sky and take a good look at the airplane that's on that runway. And the next day, the airlift started to Israel, the arms air.
So in other words, we threatened their...
We threatened to use unconventional weapons. I'll leave it at that. If they think we're bluffing, we go forward with it. Look, as far as I'm concerned, when we are faced with an existential threat, we have the right to use any and all weapons in our disposal.
And if you as little as say, I don't like your hat, these people feel like it's an existential threat. These are psychopaths. Hey guys, welcome to Signal Before Silence. In today's episode, we are going to jump into looking at Iran and US and Israel and try to make sense of what the heck is going on. We were kind of long waiting for this, in a sense, observing whether it's going to happen or not. I'm speaking for myself. It was a fight between optimism and pessimism or realism, whether US will be forced to hit or not, or resist. And alas, we have hit Iran, and I don't like that. I don't like it at all. I don't like that the US is being controlled by a tiny country called Israel and fighting their wars. It is extremely clear that the hand was forced, and we can actually even backtrack to the last so-called 12-day war to take a look at what happened there and just observe some patterns, but also to really fully understand what's going on. Sometimes you have to go way back from the very early empires and fights and dynasties and rulers coming and going, and what and how has Persia changed and shifted, and then when and how it becomes Iran, and when and how it becomes Islamic, and try to figure out, like, can I put myself in a perspective of an Iranian citizen, a foreign person in Iran that's a Iranian citizen, the leader of Iran, which is an Islamic regime, which that one's going to be tough. But you can put yourself in a position of a leader in general who has an obligation to its people, whether they honor that or not. Then the perspective of US from a very strategic standpoint, the perspective of Israel, that's a whole another thing. And then, of course, the overall morality and what the heck are we doing? How can this end? Is there an upside to this, or is this going to push us into World War III and possible nuclear blast everywhere and just, flood 2.0, just basically restart of civilization? Obviously I cannot fit all that into a single episode. So what we'll do is we'll just start somewhere and see where it goes. I don't think this will be as quick as Trump keeps saying, but at the same time, again, I always reserve hope that it will be short, and maybe we'll just recalculate. And even if Trump comes out and says, hey, we won, and puts an end to it, regardless whether we won or not, because that just seems to be a thing. Just Trump comes out and just says things, and it's just 100% inaccurate. And you're just like, okay. So at this point, it's just a banana republic and just clown world. You can just come out and say whatever. It doesn't matter. This side says this side says that, and they completely contradict each other. And and people pick one side or the other, completely ignoring anything in the middle. And God forbid you suggest something that seems defensive of this side, you get accused for sympathizing with an Islamic regime, and then vice versa. It's just same old binary thinkers are out there screaming at each other, and at the same time refusing to see nuances when someone is attempting to give that perspective. It's always just accusations. Oh my God, you're pro-Islamic regime. Oh my God, you're pro-Israel. It's really frustrating, and I can't wait for humanity to finally step out of it. Every time I feel like we are finally stepping out of it, something big happens like this, and you're like, nope, it's the same, black and white, Jew, Muslim, left, right, male, female, black, I already said black-white. It's so difficult to see people that actually do not just belong hardcore to one camp. And of course, I constantly get accused of that too, because people automatically assume that, I'm anti-Israel. That means no matter what happens, I'm anti-Israel. Well, while I am anti-Zionist Israel, that doesn't mean I am pro an Islamic regime. And allow me to explain that, because I am also not saying that that also automatically means I want this war or I want a regime change. Iranian people should figure that shit out on their own. As an American, I don't want that. I don't want that for America. I don't want billions of taxpayer dollars burning in the Middle East for Israel. And I also don't want US to lose its spot in the world or its respect. I want US to come out positively. Obviously, I'm a US citizen, so even if the country makes bad decisions, I'm not going to advocate for its demise. I live here. I want this country to prosper. I want this country to be good. But of course, I wish it was good also morally, but that's just not possible in this corrupt world where it's just full of dictators and bought and paid for politicians. And I don't necessarily think that has ever been different in history. I just think that's the state of the world, and that's just likely never going to change until some miraculous something happens and the world finally steps into a very different kind of cosmic dimension. Obviously, I'm not even sure I believe that will ever happen. Like, you look at every cycle of history, we've been doing the same shit over and over and over. Oftentimes not even expecting different results. We're just freaking sociopaths. I don't know what's wrong with us. But anyway, with that being said, let's try to figure out where do I even start, because it's massive. Before I start, if you guys are new here, please consider subscribing. This channel is constantly throttled. My last episode, which of course included the word Hitler, is completely throttled, even despite the insane amount of hype people were giving to push the algorithm forward. I wish you could see the things that I'm seeing sometimes. Like, there will be times I post a video and there's 20 plus comments within the first few minutes, yet there's not a single view, right? Like, it's just impossible. All in all, consider helping the channel by subscribing, hyping. If you don't know what that is, it's just you swipe left in the comments inside the app. It has to be inside the app, and it says hype. You can hype the channel. You can hype up to 3 times each video per week. And I would definitely appreciate your support there. And of course, the best way to support is head on to my merch store and see if there's anything you like and buy something for yourself. That would help me tremendously to have at least some change coming in so that I can actually prioritize this. All right, anyway, let's jump in. I think the best place to start would be to kind of get the dynamic and the behavior straight when it comes to Israel and US specifically, because it is my opinion, and I think it seems like the opinion of many, that US is being pressured and forced into this, while it seems that US would prefer to diplomatically reach an agreement and oftentimes makes progress for that agreement, but then Israel comes and basically it's just, they're not going to have it. They want war. And then United States jumps into it because of, I'm not sure why. Are we threatened with nukes? Are we threatened with, I'm going to butcher your family? Are we threatened with something else? Why is US entering a war that it doesn't seem to want to enter? And some of you, of course, going to jump in and be like, no, Trump was put in place for that very reason. That's not what I'm seeing. I'm seeing a man pressured into something he doesn't want to be pressured into. And this is not to defend Trump. I despise what he's doing. So again, no binary thinking, please. That if I say one thing, the opposite of whatever it is your mind is thinking isn't what I'm saying. I'm just saying the thing I said. So let's go back to a moment where Trump was extremely frustrated with Israel over Gaza ceasefire, because he brokered a deal, a ceasefire, and Israel went and, violated it. I think that would be a good place to start from.
Do you believe that Iran is still committed to peace?
Yeah, I do. They violated it, but Israel violated it too.
Are you questioning if Israel is committed?
Israel, as soon as we made the deal, they came out and they dropped a load of bombs, the likes of which I've never seen before. The biggest load that we've seen. I'm not happy with Israel. When I say, okay, now you have 12 hours, you don't go out in the first hour and just drop everything you have on them. So I'm not happy with them. I'm not happy with Iran either. But I'm really unhappy if Israel's going out this morning. We basically have two countries that have been fighting so long and so hard that they don't know what the fuck they're doing. Do you understand that?
Okay. Clearly, extreme frustration, right? And there's also a bit of a, I'm going to say, morality, behavioral display there, right? He's saying, when I say you have 12 hours, that doesn't mean the very next hour you go and drop bombs, right? Because it's a shitty thing to do. It's a terrible thing to do. There's no honor, no respect. It's just dirty. It's just dirty as hell. And clearly he's very frustrated with that. And what seems to have happened is that we are a little bit there again. Trump is furious at Israel for destroying Iran oil fields, because there's like rumors that he's just really upset because they're like, we want to save the oil, not burn the oil, and so on. And of course, why do we think that Iran forced our hand? Is one, Marco Rubio came out and pretty much blabbed it out, and then everybody caught on into what's happening, and they're like, wait, hold on, what did this guy say? For example, I'll just play a very short clip.
The third is the assessment that was made that if we stood and waited for that attack to come first before we hit them, we would suffer much higher casualties. And so the president made the very wise decision. We knew that there was going to be an Israeli action. We knew that that would precipitate an attack against American forces.
So clearly they knew that Israel is not going to hold himself. He's not going to wait, because they're already positioned and they're already going to go for it. So hence, now we have no choice. He's saying we knew it's going to, what did he say? We knew that it's going to precipitate an attack against American forces, right? Basically, because of Israel's actions, we knew that we're going to be under threat as well, so might as well hit them first, right? It's a very Jewish logic. If we didn't hit them first, they were going to hit us, even though there's no signs that these people wanted to hit them. There's actually truly no signs that Iran was preparing to hit Israel. It's been Israel that for 40 years has been preparing to hit Iran and pushing for it. So was Iran prepared and possibly waiting for it? Clearly, if somebody keeps telling you they're going to hit you, you're going to be like, okay, yeah, I believe you, psychopath, because you've been hitting everybody. And of course, President Trump comes in and kind of reiterates what Rubio said, but a lot more clearly.
And I think if we didn't do it first, they would have done it to Israel and give us a shot if that was possible.
So basically, it really sounds like Israel forced the hand because it's all about Israel. For the longest time, we don't hear anything strategic for the US. Could US benefit from controlling the oil and moving ExxonMobil and Chevron to control Iranian oil? Yeah, it can benefit, but is it worth what we might lose? Is it worth if we actually lose? Because we kind of didn't win in Iraq. We kind of didn't win in any of the other places that we went into and destroyed. None of the objectives were met. One thing I wanted to clarify, because there's an argument between two sides, is were we in the middle of negotiations with Iran, and were we progressing when we decided to just go and hit them? And the answer is yes. Not only we were still in the middle of negotiations, the very last meeting resulted in reported progress. So why are we now here? Let's go over that real quick. I wanted neutral reportings because there's third parties involved when you're negotiating. It's not just only Iran at the table and US at the table and then they're bickering at each other. There's always third parties involved. So I was trying to get to the bottom of the actual reality of what happened with that diplomatic meeting. And ChatGPT was putting nothing but propaganda sources and said how US-Israel narrative, diplomacy failed, military action was necessary, which that's not the reality. And then Iran narrative, diplomacy was still possible, the attack sabotage negotiations. In this particular event, Iran is telling the truth, because it doesn't mean everything Iran says is the truth. There's so many people right now. I've seen this on Kim Iverson, I've seen it on Jimmy Dore, both of whom I like, that they are platforming this professor, Iranian professor, who is 100% bringing the Iranian propaganda side. It's okay, obviously you're Iranian and you're going to push your propaganda, and then US is pushing its propaganda, but it's very clear that it is the regime propaganda, not the actual true sentiment, I think, of the everyday regular person. The language used makes it very clear. So that's why I said it's clear that both sides are going to blame the other. So are there neutral sources, third parties, participants that have confirmed or leaked whether negotiations were ongoing or concluded before we hit? Keep it short, but search thoroughly. Okay, the key point: there is credible third-party confirmation that negotiations were still underway very close to the strike. Oman, they were the intermediary between US and Iran. So late February, and I think, February 26 in Geneva, they met, and Iran's foreign minister said the deal was within reach. Diplomatic affairs were going actually well. And after the strike, Omani foreign minister said active and serious negotiations had been undermined, which kind of reminds me of what I just played with Trump getting mad and saying, like, you don't freaking say you have X amount of hours to come with the response and then you go and drop bombs. So we pretty much did it again. And then independent European policy analysts. The EU says the US-Israeli attack occurred while Oman-led mediation efforts were still underway. Nobody had said, no, we don't have a deal. And by the way, this has happened with Russia-Ukraine as well. There was a moment where Trump almost reached an agreement between the two, and then Boris Johnson flew from UK and whispered stuff and this and that, and then next thing we know, there's not going to be peace. It's clear that the war machine must go on. Then 3, I can never say this word, Reuters reporting, a negotiation round ended February 26 with progress, but no final deal. Progress means we're still in it. And of course, mediators said talks had advanced substantially. Okay, quotes, substantially, progress. Neutral diplomatic channel still active, another neutral actor, which represents US interest in Iran. Switzerland confirms, this is interesting, that the diplomatic channel between the US and Iran remained open even after the war began. That's an interesting one. These are the little tiny things that sometimes just truly give me hope. Look, I might be wrong on a lot of things, but I'm gonna brag for a moment. I've never been wrong about reading people. I've read people in such scary, accurate ways before that, my best friend Whitney used to just be like, how the hell is this even possible? I would look at somebody and I would just like say a whole lot of stuff about them. I don't know these people. I'm just reading their body language and I'm saying what's going on. And then 3 months later, I'd be 100% accurate. It would just all prove to be true. And just because of that, I was great at sales. I was great at finance. I was really good at any trade or craft or career I would pick, just from the psychological human observation perspective. And I think this is one of those that I don't care who says what, and I can't stand Trump for being a coward and being in this position, but he didn't want this war. I know he didn't want this war. This is not the way he would have done it if Israel wasn't in the picture at all. So bottom line is basically that in the middle of negotiations, we just went up and started hitting them. Now I want us to go over a little bit what are some reports as far as what are we spending so far versus Iran. This part is hard. There's just nothing but speculation and analysis. Some hardcore confirmations, but overall it's really hard to know what's going on. But I have confirmed majority of what this man is saying seems to be that this is the now agreed upon narrative, that this is what US is spending. So let's take a look at that. This was on Kim Iverson's show, so I just want to give her credit. She had Larry Johnson, who's a former CIA analyst, on, and this is what he had to say.
They're lying about that. So let's look at what we know objectively has taken place. Iran has destroyed 5 radars. There are 2 types. One's called an AN-TPY, and the other's an AN-FPS. One of them costs $500 million, and there are 2. The other 2 each cost $1 billion.
Wow.
Yeah, these are big-time radars. They were located at our military base in Al Udeid, at the naval base in Bahrain, all of which have been bombed, attacked. The Bahrain facility is essentially destroyed. And those radars were critical for our whole air defense system, because they would provide the immediate warning that, oh, there's been a missile launch. It's going on this trajectory. This is where you need to be prepared to engage it. And it was tied into what was called a terrain high altitude area defense weapon, THAAD, THAAD. Well, we have like a total of 10 THAAD batteries in the world. Iran has destroyed 3 of those. 30% of our total number of THAADs in the world, Iran's destroyed 3 of those in this last week. They've destroyed about $4 billion worth of radars in a week. One of the lies coming out of the Pentagon is, their launches have gone down. There are 80% fewer today than last week. And that's because we destroyed that many? Okay, maybe. But actually, we saw that pattern during the 12-day war in June, where Iran initially flooded the zone with missiles and drones, sucking up our air defense missiles, depleting our supply. And then once they had, suppressed our air defense system, then they could launch fewer missiles. I argue that's what's going on now. We're seeing the exact same thing, except the big difference is during the 12-day war, we had all those radars up active and were able to warn the Israelis, hey, you got inbound, get your, we had an integrated air defense then. We don't now. I mean, we're essentially blind.
We're essentially blind. A few days ago, I heard that up until that point, we had already burned through $500 billion worth of, whether it's ammo and the THAAD and the radars and basically equipment. And if that's the rate we go, most likely we're in the trillion by now. So we're basically burning through money and equipment while also currently running blind, while Trump is constantly talking about how we're winning. And after Trump puts this embarrassing tweet out, which is one of the most ridiculous, embarrassing things I've ever read, and of course he does that every few minutes. It says a lot when I'm saying that's the most ridiculous one, because Trump keeps saying crazy shit constantly. But after he puts out that tweet, Israel goes and he strikes Iran's oil fields. And this is what now is called acid rain. It's being reported as acid rain. And of course, that actually harms people, the environment, the people, the thing that Trump wasn't wanting to do. At least that's what he's presenting. And Israel just goes and is like, nope, we need Gog and Magog. It's all extremely ridiculously ideological for them. Do I think necessarily Bibi Netanyahu is an ideologue? No, but he knows that a lot of his brainwashed population is. So they are creating this illusion as if it's the end times and Jews going to rule the world and all that nonsense. They just are extremely malicious. Everything they do is highly malicious. There's zero regards for diplomacy or wanting to do the right thing. But either way, this is what he puts out. And it looks like It literally looks like he just left his phone unlocked near a child. It is so bad. Like, what is happening to this guy? Did he write this? Granted, it's not like he's a genius and he writes well, but look at this. Iran, which is being beat to hell, which, based on reports, doesn't seem to be true. And mind, this was before Israel hit their oil fields. So Iran, which is being beat to hell, has apologized and surrendered to its Middle East neighbors and promised that it will not shoot at them anymore. Here's the crazy thing. It is so childish to go this direction. Iran did hit its neighbors. Then it said, I don't want to hit you. I'm going to stop hitting you if you stay the hell out of this war and do not attack me in return. Because obviously there were so many things happening that Iran thought that the neighbors might think to side with US and Israel. But of course, they are right there under Iran's nose. So Iran kind of just like slapped them a little bit to say, I promise you not to do this again if you stay out of it. And of course, Trump being Trump comes out and, Iran apologized and surrendered to its Middle Eastern neighbors and promised that it will not shoot at them anymore. This promise was only made because of the relentless US and Israeli attack. This is verifiably not true. They were looking to take over and rule the Middle East. Verifiably not true. If he was talking about China, who has always just kind of positioned and shown signs of wanting to become a bigger empire, or even Turkey, who's constantly talking about pan-Turkism, or Israel, who keeps talking about pan-Israelism, I would say, yeah, they actually have always constantly drawn up new maps showing how they're going to expand. But it's just not true of Iran. Iran hasn't done that. Again, this doesn't mean I'm saying Iran, Islamic regime is innocent and this and that, whatever. I would not want to live in an Islamic regime, personally. That would be hell for me. I despise the Islamic doctrine. And I want people to be happy and free and do whatever the hell they want to do. But that doesn't mean just because Islam bad, Islamic regime bad, that means everything that they are saying or doing is just automatically just false. That's just not how it is. And everything that US and Israel are doing are verifiably false because nothing comes out of these people's mouths in the past quite a few days that is true. It's complete gaslighting. And then, of course, the same gaslighting happens from the Islamic regime side, where it's just kind of trying to show that all Iranians are unanimously behind him and they're anti-Israel and US. I don't think that's true. I think there's so much resentment gathered up from decades of Islamic regime that the Iranians, be it short-sighted or not, are actually hopeful for truly a regime change. From what I understand, his son was appointed to be the supreme leader now. I think I saw that. Fact check me on that, but we'll see what happens. But so far, it doesn't look like the regime has changed necessarily. And where was I? It is the first time that Iran has ever lost in thousands of years. Absolutely not true. Absolutely not true. Like, Cyrus the Great was defeated by Alexander the Great, who was Greek and who just came and swept and just basically took over Persia and Egypt and just like expanded. Yeah, what he didn't do is he didn't turn around and call that entire area Greece. Alexander the Great kind of allowed the autonomy of those historic names to remain. Like, Persia remained Persia and, Egypt remained Egypt. But the fact that your enemy that was fighting you forever came and took over all of your lands, and it's a completely different race, right? It's a Greek person. Clearly, that is not true. Then, followed by that, Persians for a moment, I think, take back control, and then Arabs come, bring Islam, and take over Persia. A lot of these Arabs, Turks, they kind of absorb instead of necessarily offering anything new because they're not creators. They are not creative, they're not creators. They've been good at damaging, destroying, killing, pilgrimaging, but when it comes to building, it's just not their forte. So hence they usually absorb and take over. So that's what they've done. Then after the Arabs, then there were the Mongols, the Turks, the Seljuk Turks, the whatever Turks, the Timuri Turks. So Iran has been, in a sense, defeated many times in history. And I would love to see Iranian people to take back control, get rid of the Islamic regime, get rid of Israel's influence. I don't want Israel to win this. And I want US to retreat out of it, find a good way where it doesn't lose its face and respect, but comes out of it and says, all right, you know what? Let's be the bigger guy. Let's go back to negotiations. But I just don't like that US is Israel's bitch. Okay? That part is extremely frustrating. But yeah, absolutely false statement. It is the first time that Iran has ever lost in thousands of years to surrounding Middle Eastern countries. Well, I guess depends what you mean by Middle Eastern countries. Yeah, the Arabs have been there. The Turks, who don't even belong there, have been there. Greeks, who aren't Middle East but are across the sea, have been there. Thank you, President Trump. Okay, this is the part. They have said, thank you, President Trump. I have said, you're welcome. You know what this reminds me of? This is what it reminds me of. Have you guys seen Idiocracy? I realized that I actually cannot play the beginning where he's just entering with, let me turn off the volume because there's music playing because I can't play the music. But it just basically comes in with this, you know, like that. This is the US president in Idiocracy. This is, yeah, this is Trump right now. This is what I feel like Trump is doing right now. But it is absolutely fascinating. So they have said, thank you, President Trump. And I have said, you're welcome. Iran is no longer the bully of Middle East. They are instead the loser of the Middle East. I mean, dude, man, like I get it, you're 80, but the loser of the Middle East. This is so third grade. This is less than third grade. This is not even, you're not even going to school yet. This is 6 years old. This is 4 years old. I don't have words. I don't have words to say how bad this is. And will be for many decades until they surrender or more likely completely collapse. Hold on. So now let's look at this. Iran has apologized and surrendered to its Middle Eastern neighbors. They will be the loser of the Middle East and will be for many decades until they surrender. So have they surrendered or have they not? Have they surrendered or have they not? What is going on in this presidential post? Okay, what else is he saying? Today, Iran will be hit very hard, under serious consideration for complete destruction and certain death. Because of Iran's bad behavior, are areas and groups of people that were not considered for targeting up until this moment in time. Thank you for your attention. So, here's the thing. I am inclined to not believe the rumors that Trump is angry that Israel hit the oil fields, because right here, to me, that seems like that's something that could have happened, because Israel hits Iran's oil fields pretty much just few hours after this post. Not even few hours after this post. So he is literally saying, because of Iran's bad behavior, under serious consideration for complete destruction and certain death, are areas and groups of people that were not considered for targeting up until this moment in time. To me, that sounds like he approved it. So I don't know why the rumors are coming in. It's probably propaganda to keep the minority of Trump supporters that are still supporting Trump to have hope. But I don't know. That to me sounds like he approved this. But maybe he approved something entirely different and Israel went and just got happy with it and did that instead. Okay, so that's just what's going on right now. And holy crap, I haven't even gotten into much of the more interesting stuff yet. Likely gonna have to do a couple episodes on this. But let's go back and hear this ridiculousness, because this stronghold of Israel on US is so cringe and so humiliating for Christians, for Christianity, and it feels like that's the point. It's just like they have weaponized both Christianity and Islam. Islam is the weapon and the broom to get their shit done for Israel, for Judaism. And Christianity, they had to come up with all sorts of, mind control stuff to figure out how to subvert Christianity to become utter slaves to another nation. How the hell Christian Zionists or Christian evangelicals can actually believe the things they believe in? If you believe Israelis or Jews or Judaism is the correct religion and this is God's chosen people, just become a Jew. Why are you a Christian? Why the hell are you Christian if you believe that doctrine? And how could you possibly believe a God that wants you to be subhuman? That right there is your telltale sign that you've got something wrong. But of course, these people are brain dead. So, what is this? This one is from 1992, and this is Richard Nixon. Let's hear him.
You make the observation in your book, and you say that you have said it many times when you were president of the United States, that no president is ever going to desert Israel, right?
Correct. I put it more bluntly. I said, as I told congressional leaders during the 1973 Yom Kippur War, no American president will let Israel go down the tube.
All right.
Democrat or Republican, it's not an issue.
That is stated fairly categorically, and yet in your book you make it clear at the same time that Israel really is not of any enormous strategic value to the United States anymore.
That's correct.
So why then would the United States continue to burden itself with huge loans, in some cases outright grants, to the Israelis, jeopardize possibly young American fighting men, when there is no strategic value involved, or little strategic
Because the
value?
United States is concerned by more than strategic values. That's maybe a weakness, but it's the way we are. And there are moral issues involved here. We don't have an alliance with Israel, as you know. They're not an ally of the United States in the technical sense. But we have a bond to Israel that's much stronger. It's a moral commitment because of what happened during the Holocaust, and a moral commitment because it is a democracy, the only democracy in that area. And under the circumstances, that is why American presidents and the American people in the future will support all out the survival of Israel if it's attacked.
You've always been a very tough, pragmatic man. And I just wonder if you were the president of Israel and you heard Richard Nixon talking that way, or for that matter, heard any sitting American president talk that way, and say, but there's really no strategic value anymore, how much faith would you place in that kind of a moral commitment if push really came to shove?
If I were the president of Israel, I put a great deal of faith in it because of the track record of the United States, and also because he would know that that is the way the American people are. There is no doubt whatever of our commitment to Israel.
Yeah, because they sufficiently have reintroduced and rebranded Christianity for us. So if your entire ideology is completely batshit crazy, worshipping a people and thinking that you're subhuman to those people because that's what your God wants, I mean, like, holy crap, right? And I'm not going to find and play all the insane clips from Trump when he has said things like, Christians love me. I'm not Christian, but they love me. Something like that. Or when he's being told that you're the first Jewish president, and he says, true, true. Could be like he's joking, but it's not. And his daughter is a Jew, and he's constantly wearing a yarmulke and going around Israel. Or the comment where he said that, oh, no, I'm definitely not going, like, I'm going to hell. Basically, he just has like accepted the fact that he's going to hell. And I guess that's a little bit of that's positive if he is aware of that. But all in all, I feel like they're now 100% mocking Christianity because there's this woman sitting around, where is she? Boy, I have too many tabs open. There's a whole Jewish section, rabbi section, and the crazy stuff that they talk about that I probably will not get to. But, okay, here. They're mocking Christianity right now. This is the woman that was standing over Trump recently in the White House Oval Office and praying some nonsense. And this is what they want people in the world to think that Christianity is. This is just the cringiest thing you will ever witness.
Strike and 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 strike until you have victory. For every enemy that is aligned against you, let there be that we would strike the ground, for you will give us victory, God. I hear a sound of abundance of rain. I hear a sound of victory. I hear a sound of shouting and singing. I hear a sound of victory. I hear a sound of an abundance of rain. I hear a sound of victory. I hear a sound of an abundance of rain. I hear a sound of victory. The Lord says it is done. The Lord says it is done. The Lord says it is done. For I hear victory, 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 victory in the corridors of heaven. In the corridors of heaven, victory, 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 victory. For angels are being released right now. Angels are being dispatched right now. Hamanda aka ata raka teda baka sanda ata ambo osa kata rite eke banda ata rike didi ashata. For angels have even
I can't believe I lasted an entire minute. That is so cringe. So this was posted 5 years ago. First of all, Christianity, Jesus' teachings, New Testament, we're not striking anybody. It's just not the thing. We're not striking for victory. That's just not a Christian thing. And this is, I honestly wish for a moment I had all the correct verbiage to say what this is, but I don't, and I don't want to start cursing up a storm, but holy crap. This woman. And this brainwashing has been around for a very long time, obviously. We've constantly heard Ted Cruz sound like completely brain dead. And I think there was a compilation, I wish I could find it. I think there's a compilation with just pretty much a bunch of US representatives, Nancy Pelosi, whoever, presidents, just being asked what's the most important thing for your role. It's to serve Israel. It's literally these people are in place to serve Israel, and every single one at some point is on record saying that. And this is Pete Hetzstech. I had not seen this until recently.
Jennifer and I and others had a chance to go see the Western Wall of the Temple Mount, the Western Wall tunnels, so much of the old city. And as you stand there, you can't help but behold the miracle before you. And it got me thinking about another miracle that I hope all of you don't see too far away. Because 1917 was a miracle. 1948 was a miracle. 1967 was a miracle. 2017, the declaration of Jerusalem as the capital was a miracle.
So that's interesting dates, right? 1917 was a declaration, the Balfour Declaration, also when the Bolshevik Revolution was taking place and the Ottoman Empire was collapsing, and every single one of those had very key crypto-Jew elements into it, and not just crypto-Jew elements. I could drive a very interesting parallel between Ottoman Empire's fall with Jewish takeover and the rebranding and renaming the entire region and the country to Turkey. Now that it's secular, it's completely different. It's no longer Ottoman Empire 2.0, it's Turkey. And then kind of something similar happens in Iran. I'm not suggesting there was a Jewish involvement, but there was a British involvement, and most likely Jewish backed from the finance perspective. But that would be a jump and a speculation. When the British and the US organized a coup in Iran in 1953, and they remove the PM that was elected and put in Pahlavi, Reza Pahlavi, as the PM, who was the Shah and the PM, because the other guy was trying to nationalize he did nationalize the oil, but the very first Pahlavi dynasty, let's call it, came into power through a coup in 1925. Then a lot happened, then another coup happened in 1953 to bring back the son Pahlavi. Now we're doing just another, regime change to bring back the third Pahlavi. Isn't that something? But whether it was with the first 1925 or with 1953, one or the other, is when Persia became Iran. Just a stroke of a pen, they just rebranded, renamed it, and said that this is Iran now. The understanding was that supposedly Iran, as in going back to the Aryan roots. Iran, Aryan, I don't know, maybe it means something to them. It's extremely nuanced though. When you look at the bigger picture, I can almost get behind the whole Pahlavi thing. But right now, I cannot get behind with what's happening. But again, it's so complicated. I'm going to get into genetics at some point. Let's finish hearing what he's saying.
And there's no reason why the miracle of the reestablishment of the temple on the Temple Mount is not possible.
So this is like years ago. You can see how young he is. Like, why is every US person, politician, working for Israel? Obviously, this is not news. It's news to some people. Some people reject seeing these patterns. They think that I am grabbing a bunch of unrelated things and connecting dots that don't connect. And of course, from my perspective, I'm seeing people who are incapable of zooming out and looking at the full picture, and they're stuck in isolating the events instead of connecting them. Because if every single freaking person is saying things that is verifiably untrue, highly ideological, it's subverted because that's not even the ideology being taught. The rabbis of that country, of that religion, are consistently boasting and bragging how they've done that. They call us anti-Semitic for saying certain things, but they themselves do not deny that that is true. Like, for example, this rabbi, this entire thing, he's talking about Hitler and the Bolshevism and how Jews were behind all of it, even though he's a staunch Zionist and he is very much pro-Jewish and is proud of all that. But, you turn around and you say it, that's a problem. And then there are people who just do not want to see any of it. They can't possibly connect dots. They look at everything in isolation, which is what precisely their goal was, to create this so-called rational logical thinking, which is so subvertive, right? Because it's doublespeak. Clearly, logic is good. Being rational is good. Logic is good. Thinking analytically is good. Thinking mathematically is good. But the way they have subverted people's minds to pride themselves in being rational people, yet not being able to think actually rationally, not being able to ever see patterns, to almost stay away from patterns, is quite fascinating, almost respectable, because holy shit, like, how did you even do that? And this is a Jewish person saying how they're superior to Goyim. There's so much I want to go over. This is Chavez, Castro, Maduro, Gaddafi, and many others talking about how United States and Israel have been bullying everybody, and all of the sentiment is the same. Are all these people evil and wrong, and just the common denominator is right? I don't think so. But let me see. This was Nixon. This is the devil. This one I do want here. I should have played this way early on in the video, but let's hear this, because this kind of tells us just about everything. Check this out.
I mean, it's hard for me to admit this. We are now feeding our enemy. I mean, this has never happened in history before, and you have
He's talking about US.
to ask why. And I don't want to hear this business that it's consistent with Jewish morality. It isn't. Anybody saying that doesn't know anything about Jewish morality.
That I agree with, because I'm not so sure there is morality in Judaism at all.
At all. Oh, let me bring you back to October 1973, during the Yom Kippur War, when Henry Kissinger instituted an arms embargo against us. And what happened? What happened was an A4 Skyhawk was parked at Tel Nof Air Base with some interesting weapons under its wings. And we told the Americans, take your eye in the sky and take a good look at the airplane that's on that runway. And the next day, the airlift started to Israel, the arms airlift.
So in other words, we threatened their...
We threatened to use unconventional weapons. I'll leave it at that. And so he said, is this what you want us to threaten now? I said, absolutely, except this time I want us to go forward with it if necessary. If they think we're bluffing, we go forward with it. Look, as far as I'm concerned, when we are faced with an existential threat, we have the right to use any and all weapons in our disposal to eliminate that existential threat. A lot of people don't know anything about nuclear weapons at all. What they are, how they can be used. And I'm tired of using euphemisms. I'm tired of saying, well, we have something, in the basement, but we won't be the first to introduce nuclear weapons in the Middle East. It's enough already.
This is Jonathan Pollard. Pollard? The spy, the traitor that was supposed to be, trialed and prosecuted, but instead he enjoys a life in Israel because all the criminals end up being protected by Israel. And he was a threat to US. And now he's sitting there and talking about that we should stop using euphemisms and we should, you think we're bluffing, we should use it already. Like, these people are psychopaths. What did he say? If we feel that there's an existential threat, we should basically drop nukes. And if you as little as say, I don't like your hat, these people feel like it's an existential threat. These are psychopaths. Like, absolutely psychopathic. And there's a reason that we never hear from regular Jewish people. We just hear the Zionist side. Because these people are silenced, if they even exist. I don't even know. I don't know what's going on with the Jews right now. I don't. There's so many Jews that live in America who have free speech that are either silent, or these platforms that are predominantly owned by the Zionists are silencing them. Because how is it possible for us not to hear an uproar? Because I know it exists throughout history. Who has fought Jews most are Jews, because they're the ones who constantly get sacrificed for it. But yeah, this is the psychopathy that we're dealing with. Isn't that something? And of course, if you guys have watched my channel, you know this guy who says you have 6 billion idol worshippers who make God angry every day. And he goes on to say that Christians are the worst of it all and they are idol worshippers, and idol worshippers need to die.
At least 6.5 billion people are idol worshippers that, according to the Torah, do not have the right to live.
Okay. They don't have the right to live. You have these kind of sentiments where these people, you can tell that just are hardcore waiting for their Messiah. These people are the craziest supremacists out there.
Do you see Jews and non-Jews as the same? כאילו שווה ערך.
No.
Okay, explain.
I see Jews as the chosen nation.
Okay.
They were chosen by Hashem.
Does it make Jews better?
Makes Jews different.
Okay.
Like, so, not all of our body parts are the same. They're all the same parts of the body, but there's the mind, there's the heart, there's the foot. They're not all the same. They're all part of the same body.
Do they deserve the same rights? Let's put it that way.
What the
Jews, non-Jews, anyone who lives here, let's say, does everyone deserve the same? You treated the same. Let's put it that way.
I think not. I think that this is the nation of the Jews, that the Jews should have more rights than the non-Jews.
To be really honest, if he's talking about just Israel, okay, let's pretend they weren't invaders of Israel, right? Let's pretend they belonged there. They were natives. If they were natives, I would say there's nothing wrong if you want your own country for your own people, honestly. I don't think that. Would I want migration in Armenia from all sorts of people that are our enemies? No, of course not. That would destroy us, right? Would I want a bunch of Muslims in Armenia? No, of course not. Would I want a bunch of Jews in Armenia? No, I wouldn't. However, their ideology doesn't just belong in that country, not to mention that country doesn't belong to them. So you came and you massacred people, you took their homes, and you continue massacring them. Now you've committed a genocide against them by now. Of course, this is older video. And yeah. All right, there are many other important things that I want to go over, like the history, the much about the Pahlavi regime, but the Pahlavi so-called Shah dynasty, the crown prince. How is he a prince? What makes him a prince? What's his family history? When did they come to power? What happened? Their background and everything. They're definitely a US groomed candidate from the dawn of time. Since 1925, it was British-backed coup. The timing is curious. I won't go there yet. But it's also quite interesting when you start looking at, let's say, the history of Persia, what the percentage of the population is, and some of the dynasties and the mixings that has happened. All sorts of stuff there that's very, very curious and interesting. We'll go through the dynasties and just how everything was brought to this point in time. One other thing that's important, and I'll probably drop it in this episode, is that the Strait of Harmuz, for the first time in history, is closed. And even during the 12-day war, Iran threatened to close it, but they didn't close it. During the Iraq-Iran war, they threatened to close it, but they never closed it. So basically, now it is closed, which probably will be an energy crisis in many places, because roughly 90% of the crude oil of the concentrate is passing through basically the strait to Asian nations. For example, China gets about 37.7% of the oil through the strait. India receives about 14.7%, but South Korea, roughly 70% of its total oil imports rely on this route for South Korea. Okay, 70% of their total oil comes through the strait. Japan, 90%. 90% of its total oil supply passes through the strait. Europe gets about 5.8%. US is very little. It's not much. But that little water cul-de-sac, which is right here, this one, it's right here. That's the strait that basically, obviously you have UAE, Dubai, Qatar, Bahrain, Kuwait, Iraq. So they're all using the strait for that very reason. So they are all using that channel to supply oil. And of course, we hear rumors that China and Russia are being allowed to pass through, but everybody else is blocked at the moment. However, I don't know if those rumors are true. So we'll see how this war develops, but I do want to go into some of the much more interesting thing when you get into the racial, the population, the history. It is extremely, extremely interesting to me, because there was a time when Persian Empire stopped being controlled by Persians. The Turks, first the Arabs came and did the whole Islamization thing. Then the Turks came, then the Mongols, then the Timur Turks, then just a bunch of Turks, Azeris, who are Turks mixed with Persians. Current regime, the Islamic regime, his father, I want to say, is Azerbaijani, which is Azerbaijan again. It's a Persian-Turkish hybrid. And then the Pahlavis are said to be supposedly Persian, like actually Iranian, but I think his mother is Azeri, so there's still a little bit of Turk there, but they are being classified as, more of pure Persian, and I think that's what has gotten people behind them. And then, of course, people have seen the corruption and overthrown them, and then there's just all this titter-tattering back and forth. But lots of very interesting history there. I think throughout I pretty much said what I think about this war. As an American, I want nothing bad to come to America. I don't want America to lose its national or international power. I don't want the empire to collapse, obviously. I want US to save face and come out of this okay. I would prefer if US came out of this and said, hey, we were bitch slapped by Israel, we were threatened, or we were forced, no more. We're just going to actually negotiate and take care of this like adults. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think it will be devastating for US as an empire to not win this, because if they don't win this, I think that will be the end of US empire. We already were losing respect, losing our hegemony. BRICS nations were forming to stop using American dollar for petrol. And right now it seems like maybe this is why US is there, trying to take control of that so that we are remaining a hegemon. But the fact that we are being pushed into a war that we were not fully prepared for, that's not a good sign, which means Israel, whether they threatened us with nukes or whatever happened, which I do think we got threatened by Samson option. That's my opinion. That's not a fact. I think right now there's just so many rabbis that have, like, I've heard them say how there's nothing more amusing for us to watch our enemies fight each other. And they do consider Christian white nation like Americans and Europeans as an enemy. So when they see the whites and the Arabs, which of course Persians are not Arabs by any means, but when they see their, let's say, whites versus Islam, let's call it that, are fighting, it is for them highly entertaining. They're watching their two enemies kill each other to death. And if you think about it, they have kind of disarmed Russia in many ways, because Russia is quite exhausted. It's been in war for a long time. Now, US is dropping arm and a leg into this war. So in no time, they might be exhausted and not be able to prepare if someone like China or some, bigger government or Turkey or whoever decides to actually advance forward. So this is not good for US. I don't see a good outcome unless US figures out some genius way to just be like, okay, we're done with this war and let's go back to pick up the pieces and see what we're doing, even if it's through propaganda. I don't know. As far as from the Iranian side, I do know that the sentiment is that they don't want the Islamic regime. And knowing the Iranian history fairly okay, Islam, imagine a place that was prospering and massive and just art, culture, when they romanticized Cyrus the Great, is because there was just so much being built, architecture, and then all of a sudden Arabs coming and then it turns into shit, okay? Again, Arabs and Turks have never been builders. And from there on, it's just declined and declined and declined. So I can imagine there was, of course, Sasanian. Cyrus the Great was not the last Persian Empire, but Sasanians and whatever who came back and tried to rebuild again. And then, Arabs and Turks came in and destroyed it again. And back and forth, I can understand that Islam was forced upon Persians. They made the best of it. They actually improvised it. They made it better because they're Shia Muslim, and also there's a little bit of a Sufism into their religion, which kind of it has elements of Buddhism. So it's a little bit different than just like Sunni Islam. All in all, I can understand why some of the more so-called pure Iranians are just done with Islam altogether, because they know their history and they're like, why the fuck are we doing this? Like, what was wrong with, being Zoroastrians, let's say, because that was the first monotheistic religion, not Judaism. Zoroastrianism was the first monotheistic religion with the concept of heaven and hell and good and evil. I think United States was very maybe underestimating in a way. I hope they knew that they're not dealing with Arabs. just because they went to Iraq and destroyed everything, they went to Afghanistan and destroyed everything. I hope they didn't think they can do the same to Iranians, because those are not the same people at all, not the same capability, capacity, or education, or any of it. So it's very different. And of course, there's a potential possibility that if they do overthrow this regime and they do take over Iran, they're not going to end up, obviously, living it like Iraq, because just Iranian people will not have that. So at the end of the day, what they can probably do is modernize it and turn it into a secular state, just like Turkey or Georgia or whichever one. There are quite a few that they pretty much have secularized and westernized, but they didn't destroy. But that usually is due to people, the locals. And if the local has intellectual capacity, intellectual value, then America uses that, actually. The part that I despise most is the Israel part, without doubt. I just don't like them bullying everybody and threatening people with nukes, because I just don't see any other reason why is America in this. I really don't. There's no good reason for America to be here. This can end up really badly. I'm going to end this by saying I hope the Iranian people, the actual Iranian people, not the Azeris who live there, not the Kurds, not the, whatever, what is it, Lurs? There's a lot of tribes. Iranian people, Persians. I hope they get what they actually want, whether that's to get free from this regime and be a sovereign country without Israel's and US's, power upon them. I hope there's a diplomatic resolution of sorts. When I'm saying I hope, I don't think that's what's going to happen. I'm just hoping. And I really hope that the United States pulls out of this, figures out a good way to pull out of it. I don't want United States to not be the main power, obviously. I live here. I want this to be the main power. So I'm not going to be a hypocrite or a freaking leftist and, just wish destruction upon the very place, upon the very home I live in. So obviously I want US to win, but not for Israel, and not in a highly immoral way when it's just so short-sighted, so not well calculated, and so rushed. I hope we go back to the drawing board and start talking again. Not probably very possible, because we just killed the guy's dad, who's now going to be the next leader. So good luck with that. Okay, we'll see what happens. All right, guys, if you made it this far, please subscribe. That does help me a lot. As I say always, the channel is throttled. I feel like a broken record saying this. I despise saying the promotional piece, but I also notice anytime I cut it short or don't say it, it's just my numbers flatline. So I'm going to say it. And I'm going to also say that please visit the merch site and pick something up for yourself. And if you don't like anything and you have ideas, let me know. But I have, of course, my name of the channel, Signal Before Silence. That's one way to support me. If you, let's say, don't want to wear a cross because of the stigma around Christianity, which is really sad and inaccurate, for good reason, of course. The stigma exists for a good reason. We have Stop Noticing shirts, because we're doing a whole lot of noticing, but people don't want us to. But at the same time, I don't know, man, how much are we noticing? Because how could it be that we all are noticing things? How could it be that Trump doesn't know that American population despises him right now? Actually, I think I saw him recently being booed. Oh man, there's so many things I didn't talk about. I am so bad at structuring my episodes. Kurds might get involved. I hope they don't, because that would be the stupidest freaking thing, because I will have zero respect for Kurds. Every single time of history, these people have been used to do the worst things imaginable, and then they've been promised lands and they've been, effed over. And they just keep repeating the cycles, keep being a tool to do crazy, immoral things, and then they get betrayed. Thankfully, they get betrayed because you don't deserve it. But it's very possible they might mobilize again, but we don't know if it's true or not. But also, I really was wanting to play this too.
If it was up to me, I would pretend that one missile came from Iran and shoot it down.
Yeah, Israel does that a lot, and just watch what's going to happen with that. Look at this. How is it possible? Like, obviously Trump. Nobody's letting him talk. Like, it is the craziest fall from grace I've ever seen, because he had such a big support behind him, and this is where he's at right now. But anyway, somehow every time I promote my shop, I start rambling on into more stuff. Like, this is so funny. Only those people who watch me till the end end up getting this bits. So yes, please, if you want to support, head on there. There's a bunch of links in the description. There are, of course, my socials. Like, you find me on X. I am trying to grow that because YouTube is being really tough. They're doing everything possible to not promote me at all. So the only ways I can really hope that I can keep going is to create other channels and sources where I can create a little bit of income, even if it's a little bit. So X is one place I'm trying to grow, but it's very slow. I am on Rumble, but of course I really would like you guys to watch me on YouTube for now, because at least I'm still monetized there. And I have links to my merch store, both in the description as well as pinned to the top of the comments, as well as a PayPal account if you want to donate anything. And I still gotta open that Buy Me Coffee thing that people have been asking for. I am terrible at this. Thank you guys for being here, and we'll continue the Persian topic for a little bit and go into the history, the race, the DNA, and I think it's worth looking at it. It is quite interesting.